What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Jermaine Neal. I believe that Jermaine Neal is the most underrated player from the 2000s, continuing my series of the most underrated player from each decade. Jermaine Neal was born on October 13th, 1978 in Columbia, South Carolina. He had one of the most successful high school careers in recent history. He was third team Parade All-American in 1995, McDonald's All-American in 1996, South Carolina Mr. Basketball in 1996, first team Parade All-American in 1996, and overall in 1996 he ended up skipping college and going straight to the NBA draft. Somewhat due to the fact that he got a low SAT score. He was selected with the 17th pick by the Portland Trail Blazers in the 1996 NBA draft. In his first season, he averaged 4 points a game and only averaged 10 minutes a game, as was a bench warmer for a veteran, decent Portland team. He broke the record for the youngest player in NBA history at 18 years, 3 months, and 11 days. 18 years, 1 month, and 22 days. But Andrew Bynum ended up breaking that record. But he was the youngest player, still is the youngest player at 18 years, 3 months, and 11 days to score 20 points in a game, despite only averaging 4 points a game. 1997, the Trailblazers did make the playoffs. They got swept by they got gentlemen swept 3-1 in the first round against the Lakers. Against another young player that didn't get many minutes, Kobe Bryant. Also against Shaquille O'Neal. A young Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. 3-1. And Jermaine O'Neal only played in 2 and didn't score a single point. 1998, he still didn't get many minutes. He barely went up. He got 13 minutes a game. He slightly increased, but he still was a bench warmer. Still was very young. The Portland Trail Blazers were again going to have to make the playoffs. They lost to the Lakers again. Although Kobe was developing, Jermaine O'Neal was just stuck because the Trailblazers weren't playing him as often as the Lakers were playing Kobe. In 1999, his averages went down to only 2.5, but this was a lockout season. But still, he only averaged 8 minutes a game. He actually played decently meaningful minutes in the 1999 NBA playoffs and played 9 games, which was his most up to that point. They got eliminated in the conference finals to Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and the San Antonio Spurs, who obviously ended up winning the NBA championship that year. In 2000, his playtime increased again, but still less than 20 minutes a game. Barely getting any minutes, and he only averaged 3.9 points a game. They made the playoffs again, made the conference finals, and once again got eliminated by the Lakers in an iconic Game 7 where Kobe lobbed up to Shaq And you know that play. It's one of the most iconic games in recent NBA history. 2000 would be the last year he'd be with the Trailblazers, as after so many times of not getting any minutes, he got traded for Dale Davis, NBA All-Star Dale Davis. The reason he got traded for an All-Star, even though he didn't get any minutes, was because he had potential and he was still young. He was 22 at this time. His play time increased by over 20 minutes a game. He started playing 32 minutes a game, 13 points a game. And also 10 rebounds a game, almost a double-double. And his stats increased throughout the board. And the Pacers were so good. Coming off of a finals appearance, expectations were high, but they got eliminated by Allen Iverson's Philadelphia 76ers in a close 4-game series. Even though it was only 4 games, 3 of the games were decided by 5 points or less. And the series could have gone either way, but Allen Iverson's 76ers prevailed and they ended up going to the finals. 2002, he got even more minutes, 37.6, 19 points a game. His rebounds went up, 10.5. Now he was averaging a double-double. The Pacers were kind of plateauing as Reggie Miller was getting older, and they weren't replacing him with anyone that could help them. And they got eliminated in the first round again by the New Jersey Nets, who also ended up going to the NBA Finals. 2003, still played a lot of minutes. His scoring went up. And overall, he was now an All-Star. 2002 and 2003, he was an All-Star. Also an All-NBA 13 player. In 2002, he was the NBA Most Improved Player. After going from 12 to 19 points a game. Didn't have the same jump in 2003, but he still went up 20 points a game. Indiana were getting good. He had a very successful playoffs. He averaged 22 points a game and 17 rebounds. But they got eliminated in the first round again. This time to Boston in 6 games. 2004, he went down a little bit, but still was a 20-10 guy. Still an All-Star. But for the first and only time in his career, he was an All-NBA second-team player in 2004. The Pacers were again a very good team, but this time they were title contenders, with Ron Artest being a Defensive Player of the Year, Reggie Miller still being good, and overall they being a very good defensive team. They ended up losing to the Detroit Pistons. This is a very, very defensive series, even for the time where scoring was at an all-time low. Scores as low since the 50s. In this series especially, no game and not one game did a team score even 90 points. Or even the highest scored in the series was 85 by Detroit in Game 3. And in Game 6, both teams couldn't even get to 70. In this highly defensive series, the Pistons came out on top. 2005 is the most infamous year for the Pacers almost as a whole, as their whole history. The malice at the palace broke, and he was suspended for 25 games, but he got a 10 game reduction and only ended up being 15 games. He still only played 44 games. Averaged a lot in that time, but that's only because he barely played it any time. They still made the playoffs, and they were still a very good team despite Ron Artest, their best defensive player of the year. And at the start of the season, like the 7 games that he ended up playing, he was averaging 25 points a game, and it's one of the biggest what ifs. If the Malice of the Palace never happened, it would affect the Pacers, but also the league as a whole, as a lot of people say that the league becomes soft because of this, and the refs got more strict about calls because they didn't want this to happen. This to happen again. They ended up losing to the Pistons again, this time in the second round. Pistons ended up going to the finals in 2004 and in 2005. 2006, the Pacers lost Reggie Miller and Jermaine Neal himself only played 51 games. He still averaged 20 points a game, not 10 rebounds, but almost 10 rebounds. And he still was an all-star, but no longer the All-NBA player that he used to be. They were no longer huge contenders in the East, and they got eliminated in the first round to the New Jersey Nets, Jason Kidd, and Vince Carter. Even though during this time they were huge underperformers, they could still beat the Pacers, which really shows how far they fell from the lower days. 2007 was the last year that he was an all-star. Averaged 19 points a game, 9.6 rebounds a game. Played in almost 70 games. But they didn't even make the playoffs. 2008 was the last time. 2008. Yeah, 2008 was the last time he was with Indiana Pacers, but he got traded on July 9th, 2008. He only played 42 games and only averaged 13.6 points a game. Did not make the playoffs. He got traded to the Toronto Raptors and then got traded to the Miami Heat and ended up playing in the playoffs with the Miami Heat and averaging 13 points a game. This is when Dwayne Wade was by himself with no help. He ironically played in which was so-called by SB Nation, the most boring playoff series ever. It was a 7-game series, but almost all the games were blowouts, and the closest game was a 10-point game in Game 4. Ended up going to 7 games, and the Atlanta Hawks came out on top. At this point, Jermaine O'Neal was nothing like he was before, not all-star. Just barely surviving. He went to Boston after this. It's kind of ironic, because Miami and Boston became rivals. LeBron versus the Celtics. Iconic playoff beef. He was still a decent player, and he still was good enough to play 9 games in the playoffs. The Celtics were still contenders, but they got eliminated in the second round. An iconic series against Miami, which is LeBron James' revenge series against Boston. He was in 12. He was only averaging 5 points a game, and he ended up getting waived before he could even play a game in the playoffs. He got signed by the Phoenix Suns on August 15th, 2012. His point being under 20 points a game almost. For this season, he was under 20 points a game, 19 points a game. His scoring went up and still played in a decent amount of games, but he was but the Suns did not make the playoffs. 2014 was his last season with the Golden State Warriors. This was one season before they ended up winning the championship. He probably could have stayed. He still had a decent impact. 8 points a game, 44 games, 20 minutes a game. He made it to the playoffs. He played all 7 games. Even started in 3. The first 3 games. They lost in 7 in a close series. In total, he averaged 13 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, but he was a way better player than his career averages perceive him as he played a long career, 1996 to 2014. That's a long time. When he was young, he barely got any minutes, and when he was old, he barely got any minutes either. When he was in his prime, he was 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA. But not just that, he was a great rebounder. He was on those Indiana Pacers teams that could have and probably should have won the championship. I also should mention that he was a part of the 2004 Olympic team. He was a part of the qualification for the 2004 Olympics, which ended up going sour, but a knee injury stopped them from participating in the game. Sorry, my bad. He was a 6-time All-Star, and in his prime, he was a 2010 guy. I say his prime was from 2002 to 2007. So when he had the All-Star appearances, he averaged 20 points a game and 10 rebounds. Played well in the playoffs too. And it wasn't like he was one of those players that didn't play well. From 2002 to 2006, he didn't make the playoffs in 2007. 19 points a game, 10 rebounds. He's a lot like Elton Brand, but with better opportunities, better teams. I think Elton Brand could have been something like Jermaine O'Neal. He was a power forward center. Jermaine O'Neal obviously played longer than Elton Brand, but they came from the same era. He just was on a better team during his prime. The Indiana Pacers. It's a shame he never won a championship. That's why I think he's mostly forgotten in the 2000s, because he never won a championship. He was a 6-time All-Star, which is impressive, and it was all in the 2000s. This is why Jermaine O'Neal is my pick for the most underrated player from the 2000s. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. Peace.